I'm Jean Bixby Smith. I am Llewellyn and Avis's oldest granddaughter, and you will be their youngest and only other granddaughter. And I have the privilege of starting this out. I'm going to talk to you just a bit of sort of set the stage. I realize that perhaps many of you don't know how our grandparents became involved. If you've studied the Rancho history and reported of the time when we were raising sheep and all that business, it's the Jotham Bixby family that you hear about, not the Llewellyns. So I thought I would go back to kind of, not the very beginning, but the beginnings of our side of the family's relationship with this rancho, and just give you a bit of background. So we called our grandfather Pawpaw. He was born in 1879. His older sister was Sarah. She was 8 when he was born, and his next sister was Anne, who was 5. They are the children of Llewellyn, who was the first of the Bixbys to come from Maine to California. But they came earlier in the 1850s, and so we skipped 20, 30 years here. When he was born, his mother became ill soon after that, and his mom died in 1881. And his Aunt Martha, who was the 5th of the sisters who intermarried with the Bixby family, who came here, never married, but lived with their father, Llewellyn, in Los Angeles. Their father, Llewellyn, ran family businesses that had been established when they came, and they were sheep ranchers in the 1850s, 60s, when they bought the rancho, and through the 1880s and 90s. So Llewellyn ran the business end of things, and his younger brother, Jotham, who came to Southern California with him from Northern California, when they bought Rancho Los Cerritos in 1866, it was Jotham's family who lived here and managed the ranching part of the business. And they shared ownership. They were each had 50% ownership. So Llewellyn and family, which included our grandfather, lived in Los Angeles. Llewellyn, Pawpaw, and his sisters spent, their mother died when he was 2. He was the youngest of the 3. Their mother died when he was 2. So his aunt came and raised the children. Their Aunt Martha came and helped Llewellyn raise them. But the other 4 sisters had married one of the Bixby men, including our grandfather married 2 of them. The first one died and had no children. Okay. So they would come and spend their summers on the rancho. My kind of guess is that this is the place, because of their summers here and because they were surrounded by family, but this is the place that felt like home to Llewellyn and his sisters. And that they didn't have any deep tie to Los Angeles, but I probably haven't invented that, so don't take it as a given. In 1888, things had really changed in Long Beach, and the rancho was no longer really super active in the business of raising sheep, but they did have agricultural operations and what have you. And the Jotham family began to move off the site. They built homes in different parts of Long Beach. And the city of Long Beach incorporated in 1888. So all of a sudden, there's a lot of development going on. People are coming and settling here. And the rancho then, as the Bixby family moved away, the rancho entered their tenant period. And then, as I said, there were some agricultural enterprises. Some of the tenants here worked at Virginia Country Club at one point, but the home itself was not occupied by the family for quite a number of years. When his father died, when our grandfather's father, the first Llewellyn, died, that was in 1896. And at that point, the Bixby family divided up all the business interests and distributed out. So there was one or two who owned something and cousins who owned something or other else. And they separated from cousins in the San Francisco or south of San Francisco area. And the rancho at that point, not inhabited by any of the family, entered what we call the tenant period. And there were a number of people who lived here, and some of them are now reassociated with the rancho, and you may have met them. We're very pleased to have them and their descendants kind of be made a part of the rancho story again and encompass them in telling the history so that it really is an accurate history of the land and the rancho itself. When his father died, our grandfather was only about 17 years old. He at that point, I believe, was attending like prep school in Claremont, California, Pomona. Later on, he ended up going to Pomona College, and they were actually a part of the same enterprise. There was Pomona Prep School and Pomona College. Later on, the prep school was phased out, and the college existed from then on, but to today, and it's a very well-known private college, as you may know. But he met his wife, Avis, there in prep school, and then they went through Pomona College together and married. And then, after they went on their honeymoon, which has been documented in the rancho records, and we indeed are going to be giving a dinner that was a part of an auction for the rancho where we will serve the meal that we found on a menu from the train, so it'll be a kind of authentic 1930s meal, that kind of thing. Anyway, it's kind of fun to know that. But anyway, Llewellyn and Avis moved then to Long Beach because, as I said, I think this is the place that felt like home to him as a child. This Long Beach, that they didn't have any real ties to Los Angeles. So they moved here and settled down, married, and had their two children, Llewellyn and Avis. Avis was the oldest, his sister, and Llewellyn, our father, then was born in 1908, and at that point, they lived in Long Beach down along the ocean area. And our dad grew up and went to school here, and so he was born and raised in Long Beach. Where was I going to go? He was, and this is a side I'll come back to in just a second. Our granddad was trained as a civil engineer, but instead of following that, he moved into and took over managing some of the family business and enterprises, including the Bixby Land Company, which exists today, and which developed a good part of the eastern part of Long Beach, but that's a whole other story. So one of the reasons I wanted to tell you about being a civil engineer is that when the Virginia Country Club who of course surrounds us now, was going to build a golf course, our granddad did the engineering, the surveying for the golf course. And because I can remember my dad saying, and he let me be his stick man. And our dad was about 11 years old at that point, it was in the early or mid-19 teens, I think we were 16, 17, when that happened. So that's kind of a fun part of the story, but he didn't pursue that, but it becomes important in a minute. So I think we can turn the pictures on. In the mid-1920s, our grandfather became really concerned about backtracking a little, to the condition of the rancho. It was empty. By then, it was deteriorating. The Jotham Bixby family had moved on and moved out and lived in other places in Long Beach. They were still here. But there is the picture. So this is one of the pictures of what the rancho looked like in the mid to late 1920s when our grandfather took over the rancho, made or purchased the interests of his cousins, and decided that he needed to rehabilitate it, that it was a place that deserved to be preserved, and he would do that. So this is another one. Now we're looking at the front of the rancho, and of course you can see the veranda, and you can see what kind of condition the walls are in, what the roofing looks like, and we have one more, I think, slide. Okay, now, yeah, so this is the one. It was, as you can see, in pretty bad shape. So he undertook to rehabilitate the rancho. As I said, as a civil engineer, the thing he did that was most, he obviously engaged people who knew about rehabilitating adobes, but one of the things about adobes is that they are built with about 15 feet, I think, before they need a wall to hold up the roofs. And he realized that as a civil engineer, that this was a very fragile structure. And so he was the one who came up with the plan for the earthquake retrofit, which meant putting steel rods through the walls and into the construction, and which allowed this room to become one room and 2 stories. As children, there were more rooms, and so maybe there were, I don't remember, but I would say by the windows there may have been 3 bedrooms over here. Because after all, they would house quite a few people in the rancho when family came to visit and what have you. So that's, she's gone on now. You can see what it looked like after the rehabilitation began. Okay, let's start paying attention to the pictures and not driving over the line.
You can see this is the pomegranate tree that's laying on the ground now. You can see it standing.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to see the big tree.
Okay, here's another picture. Now this one is of our grandmother, grandfather, or Aunt Avis, my father's older sister, and their son. Is it Stephen Paul or is it just Paul? It's Paul. All right, Paul is the oldest of our generation. Let's see, I have to backtrack to 35. He's probably born in 32. 91. And 91 now, okay, right. But he was born in 32, then our brother is the next, and you'll see us all here in the next few pictures, which Barbie will talk about. Our brother was next, he's born in 35. I was born in 38, confession. Barbara in 41. And our grandfather, who's in this photograph, died then in 1942, early in 42, so I don't remember him. But as a man around here, Barbara doesn't remember him at all. I mean, she wasn't here, so she wouldn't. This is a picture of our grandmother and grandfather, and over there is my mother, and I think that I'm the one in this picture, but I can't hard to tell. Oh, there's Nick's over there. I'm in front of you. It's a little hard to find. But this is, now you can see the difference in the ranch house. Although it had a peaked roof, he put in the roof with the tiles to make it the Spanish style, the Monterey style. The arcades are put in because in the early pictures there's no veranda over in front of the doorways from the bedrooms. You just stepped out into the dirt and mud until that. So, and the brick walkways and that kind of thing. So this shows that, the pond and areas that you're familiar with today. And you saw the before picture a minute ago. Thank you for moving it on.
And you wanted to tell your pond story, didn't At this point?
Well, I'm sure. I only know it because it was told to me. I do not recall this. But apparently we were here and I was about 2 years old and they were having Sunday dinner at noontime or 2 o'clock or whenever they had it in the dining room, and I disappeared and nobody quite realized it. I went out and apparently tried to reach for something, a fish or a flower or something in the pond and fell in. And the first thing the family knew about it is that and my mother told this story, not someone else, she told it about herself. I reappeared in the dining room all wet and gave them all a big start, because you might imagine I was about 2. And I could easily have found my way out. I was the accident-prone one. This one is our brother Bix and our cousin Steve, Paul Dudley, the oldest of the 4, 5 cousins, are in there. And you can see we're inside the tripod, which we love to play. It was over and behind the Moreton Bay Fig, because that's where the rose garden was. And the rose garden isn't there anymore because there's no sunshine to grow roses. And I think that's the end of mine. No, okay. This is my brother and myself riding tracks on the patio, and
Now it's my turn.
now it's Barbara's turn.
So, this is when I show up. I'm the baby in the family. So you can see Jean, Bix, Paul, and me. And we are out in the front yard playing croquet, which I do remember. Not from this age, but when I was a little bit older. And that was fun. Yeah, here's the sun porch. And I sort of vaguely remember that. I'm 3.5 years younger than Jean. So I have certain recollections of incidences or experiences that happened. But I do remember the sun porch, and we spent quite a bit of time out there. And here we are, this is Jean in a dress. And me, and I think I'm about 2.5 there, so that would be 1943, 4. And Mom out there with the irises. And then the next slide, it shows me running along the front of the house, and every picture you see of me, I'm in a dress. That's not the case with Jean. We'll see in a minute. But anyway, this is out by the water tower, and I loved these rubber boots, so I wore them all the time, even though it wasn't raining. But another dress. So here's, this is we're a little bit older there. I was maybe about 3.5, 4. And I'm still in a dress. And Jean's in her trunks with no top.
Yes, as you can see the sleeves.
So if you look at this picture over on the right, you'll see the tripod. Yeah, yeah, behind us back there. And also, this is about 11 or 12 years after Papa and Grandma moved in, so you can see that there's a lot more planting, a lot more growth around. And also, I don't remember these, but there were wicker chairs on the veranda there. Oh, here we are. Jean still in her shorts and no top. And I'm in my dress and there's bits of the three of us are running from towards the tripod. And this is Granny, Mom, me, Steve, and Aunt Avis. And I want to remark about this because if you look at Granny, it's kind of hard to tell. But she and Aunt Avis wore braids over the top of their head. That was a style then. And both Granny and our dad and Aunt Avis were redheads. And she wanted redheaded grandchildren when she ever got, especially granddaughter. Jean and I were both pretty white blonde when we were young, and then, of course, our hair grew darker. But Steve and I, if you look, are about the same size because we're the same age. And when we got a little older, say 5 or 6, you all, if you're familiar with the art, and the pathway that goes all the way around in a circle. And I do have memories of that, where Steve and I would start where the front door is and run all the way to the car. And that was really lots of fun. And Steve won most of the time. But anyway, so you can see we call our grandmother Granny and Aunt Avis over there and Steve.
That's our mother's writing.
Yes, right. She didn't identify herself or me, she knew who we were. Okay, and the next one. This is Steve. This is after Granny moved from the house here down to the villa here. And but Arthur Orchard had been the caretaker for a number of years. And Steve and, well, the Dudley family lived on Locust and San Antonio Drive, so they were just down the street practically down. And so Steve would come over and he just loved doing things with on the rancho. And so this is really cute that Laura thinks this is Steve is carrying what?
Some stuffed animal. Yeah.
I can't tell what it is. But Arthur was his pal. And until Steve was old enough to go off to college, he would come over and see Arthur and kind of hang out here. And then I think from there, yep, Jean started again. We're jumping forward.
And, but I wanted to get married here. And so we had to get permission from the city to do it. And the city only granted permission to family members. It happened, I was the first. And this is my father, the Llewellyn III, but who, for business reasons, became known as Llewellyn Jr., that's beside the point. And myself, on my wedding day in August of 1959, walking out the door. And there's a couple more pictures, just to give you a sense of, and look at how much it's grown up. You saw all those first plants, thinly little trees. Well, this is what they looked like last time I got married. So you can see the walking down the aisle. And the next picture is just to show you the Moreton Bay fig. This is taken from kind of behind it at a different angle. And you can see it, but the Moreton Bay fig seemed big at the time, but these days, it's had quite a few years to grow. It's much bigger. Okay. There's, I think, one more. Oh, okay.
And this is me. In between Jean, our brother, Bix was here, and then I came along later, and this is, of course, you can tell, fourth part with my bridesmaids. And then the next one is, this is where I was married, so this is facing, pretty much facing the country club. Maybe left of where the gazebo was, in that area right there. So a little bit different angle. Our brother and our oldest nephew, Mark, were married right out here facing the house. And our youngest nephew, Graham, wasn't married here because the house was closed then for retrofitting. And so he was married over at Los Alamitos. And I think that's about it. So I think that's the end of the pictures. Thank you to Laura for setting up this video. And yeah, so if there are any questions, we're happy to answer.
Is this picture in the backyard here?
Yeah, they're all,
They're
all,
But Laura, is that the old pepper tree?
No, it looks like it's a Chinese elm, doesn't it? But you can see the country club right over here.
Oh yeah, okay.
And
we're facing.
yeah, and the gazebo isn't there anymore, but it was roughly here for a number of years. So those of you who've been around a while will remember the white gazebo.
I have a question. In the first picture you showed, the residence was, the roof was flat. I was wondering for your grandfather, did he put a new roof on the residence part?
No, I
Because it shows flat.
just, well, that's, it's been taken down.
Yeah.
There, it was, Temple had put a pitched roof on, it was
Yeah.
originally
Did he put-
a flat roof. Then the New Englander bought it and put on a pitched roof, so
Yeah.
it had pitched roof on the main part of the house, but not on the wings for quite a period.
Or did he put it in because,
And then our granddad must have taken down what was there and reinforced it so it could carry the weight of the tiles.
okay, all right.
You all didn't go up here. Your
No.
parents had a residence with you somewhere else. Can I ask you
Yes,
where
we
that is?
lived in East Long Beach, first by Rogers and Lowell Elementary School. And then we lived down on the peninsula.
Well, in some of the pictures of the back door here, I don't see that opening where all the height chart is.
It's there,
Oh, it is there? Okay.
it's the old one.
It's very hard to see
It would be
any of these photos.
here.
There's one of those photos where it's so, photos are so washed out. It's there, and it has the glass over it
Yeah.
now, but it didn't, of course, when we were young. You can find our initials and
But-
dates and things like that.
That particular part of the wall was left, and not covered over.
Do you know anything
That
about
has
the
the
brick
glass.
fence? Do you know anything about the brick fence all around?
I'm sorry.
The brick fence, do you know anything about a brick
Wall.
wall all the way around?
Not really, except that it was
Your
built.
grandfather.
It was, yeah, I think he built that house.
It was still open to the country club, and
Yeah.
they had just probably wouldn't
And
have
close it in.
So that was a part of his, what he did.
Yeah.
Yes.
those special bricks.
Yeah.
So,
Special bricks of the whole.
Oh, special bricks.
I believe these bricks are the same bricks that are
Those are original.
in the veranda.
Yeah, you can see it.
On the veranda.
Yeah.
So Jean, I like the story you tell of your shoes that you wore at your wedding. Some people probably haven't.
Okay, when after the house was turned over to the city and it's gonna be established as a historic site, the city went out and they hired the first curate, and his name was Robert Evans. He was really not interested in entertaining the public, but he was very interested in documenting the history. And he was the right person at the right time. Because he wrote to all of the relatives in the East Coast and what have you, and interviewed them via letter about their memories of the rancho or what they remembered of their siblings or their cousins who lived here and if they ever visited. And he documented the history of the rancho and of the family in a way that couldn't have happened 15 or 20 years later. But he as I say, really wasn't interested in entertaining people and making it open and friendly to the public. So he put signs up, and the sign said, "Don't walk on the grass." And then, well, I hated it. And I didn't want to come back to the rancho because, I mean, we ran around on the grass. It was our playground. And what do you mean I can't walk on it now? But when it came time to get married, this was the only place I wanted to get married. So we went to the city and asked for permission to have the marriage be here, and they allowed us to do it. And so Mr. Evans, the day of the wedding, the family came, and it's like 2 in the afternoon, and we brought everything. And they're setting up, and I'm out there setting up because it's not till 5:30 or 6. And so anyway, I was running around barefoot. It's August when we got married here, the 25th. And he came out, he was terribly concerned that I was going to get married with dirty feet. So I was very careful to tell me where I could go. And that there was a bathroom around the corner, which I could use, so I could wash my feet before I came here. So that's the story.
Now, if you look at this, here's the temple.
No, that's a Bixby roof. Yeah.
I don't see the wisteria.
Is it?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yes.
See that one?
No, that was added.
That's a second.
Well, there was an arbor there for temple, but it's probably fallen down by this point.
Right, tiles. Right.
Yes.
Oh, well, and I don't think the arbor was out there, maybe,
Yes.
I don't know, but yeah, if there was, if the wisteria was there.
Yeah.
But you can't see the outhouse?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Who did put the wisteria?
That was the grandfather, right?
Yeah. Okay. So much was surprisingly.
I've got a question too, and another question. When your grandfather bought the property from the family, I guess it was, what was the reaction of the family? Were they in support of it, or, you know?
Well, the Joker family essentially abandoned it, they didn't care about it, and it was falling down. And our grandfather got concerned and bought out their interest.
By that time, because the rancho had been essentially abandoned, and there were tenant farmers that lived in each one of these rooms. Jotham really didn't have any serious association with it. So when our grandfather bought it, it was just this 4.5 approximately piece of property that he felt needed to be preserved. So, and no, there wasn't.
I said, go at it.
Yeah, there was no family, it was Jotham part of the family that moved on further. They moved on. some of you will know the George Bixby home, which is one of Jotham's sons, right over here in Wallenda Drive, built a beautiful home. Jotham himself built a home down on the waterfront at Cherry and Ocean Boulevard. And then when the earthquake came, his portico fell down and he never would go back inside the house. They moved out, moved someplace else, and I'm presuming somebody else did the moving, because my understanding is, but they weren't interested in the Rancho, and our granddad thought it was a place that needed to be.
There's a picture.
Yeah, so that's the John Temple.
Yeah.
Book. That's a New England, and just to put the picture up instead of the platform.
Is he the one that moved to, that property just down the street where it's all enclosed?
That's the
That's
last, right, that's George.
That's the George Bixby home. But anyway,
Other questions?
yeah, we may not be able to answer the book.
Well, you shared that really nice story about some falling into the pond.
Oh,
And so I'm gonna use that probably on some of the tours. Do you have any other stories?
She was the one that was accident.
that's true. I know I got stitches when I was.
She fell off a brick wall and sliced the side of her leg open.
I was 12 by then.
When I was in that, she had her hair cut and the hair.
I was bald for a while.
And I kept out of trouble.
And your dresses.
Yes, she did.
As a 2-year-old, how did you get out of that?
I don't know. I don't remember. It was a story my mother was told on herself, which I've always admired, the fact that she would tell that story.
Well, I did that. Gee.
No.
You told her that, it's the same, it's the same pond we see now. Well, I probably tried to reach for a flower or tried to catch a goldfish and lost my balance, I don't know what. But you were only 2. I gave everybody at least pause for thought. Years, all that. So, yeah.
Do you remember how this was decorated, the living room at home? As far as the furniture?
I just remember one Christmas. I just have this picture in my mind's eye, and there being a Christmas tree right in this corner. But other than that, I mean, it was so dazzling, that's all I thought about. Anything about furniture.
Because your grandfather was into photography, but he didn't take many pictures of the house. So.
No. Actually, I didn't know my grandfather.
I think I remember.
He died at 6 months after
Yeah,
I was
there,
born.
really knows. I have kind of a mental picture of there being a piano in here. And I can remember furniture around, but it wasn't a place we spent a lot of time, you know. And then we ran outside.
Yeah, exactly.
I can tell you the croquet set and the toys were in the cupboard under the stairs. And we knew right where to go to get it and pull it all out. You saw us, they had toys and things that we kids used, so you saw us riding the tricycles. And we did love playing croquet out on the front, well, the backyard. It's
Right.
not the backyard to me, but.
Yeah.
It's
So Stephen remembers walking around this rim. Do you
Oh,
remember
yes.
doing that?
No.
Oh my God.
That's what he does. All the time you're about to, you wouldn't have been doing that.
Probably did, yeah.
I remember that we, one of the things that we did as kids, I mean, it was much of this, well, our granddad had died, but during the war, our grandmother was still here until at the end of the war. But I remember things like blackout curtains, but we still came here and visited her, obviously, because Barbara remembers that the pictures show us, and those were pretty much taken during the wartime. But I remember that we would go out in the orchard, so we had fresh fruit, because we would pick things, and particularly I remember tangerines, which I loved. And only recently have we been able to find tangerines in the store that come within a country mile, but we would pick produce and take it home, and I do recall that kind of thing. So the orchard was out there, useful to the family.
I got a question. Did you ever go where the stairs are to go down to the furnace room?
No.
Did you ever go down there?
We still have
We were not allowed. It's not that we didn't want to, I can remember we used to ask. You guys.
On tours, I tell the kids, that's where all the naughty kids go.
Steve may well have gotten down there at some point, because he did have a very close relationship with Arthur, and they lived over here, as Barbara said, in the neighborhood, so even after our grandmothers moved out, he would come and, you know, if the gate was closed, he'd just climb the wall and go find Arthur. And they were big buddies. That picture showed him very young, but Arthur was really an important person in Steve's life, all the way through his teen years, and probably until the Rancho was passed on to the city, which was 55, so that would have been at least into his early teens. Yeah. Okay, that's probably enough. If you think of it, don't ask us. This is fun for us to take a trip down memory